We are live. Welcome to Easy to Read Deep Thoughts, email broadcasting with my special guest, Carolyn Carlson. This is going to be an awesome episode. Carolyn and I, we met through Government Contracting Academy, and she's a government contractor. Hey, good personal story. Carolyn's company, DataClear, was the first prime that allowed me to join on a bid as a subcontractor. She gave me my first real opportunity. I'm grateful. Alrighty, let me do. Go ahead. Were you going to say something?
Oh, Jonathan, it's a pleasure to be with you. And one day we are going to win together because we're going to grow as mature firms. And, it's important to reach out and network and team with strategic partners. And you provide a valuable service. And we're going to continue to team. And the next time we're going to pick ourselves up and we're going to win together. So I look forward to that day.
It's going to be awesome. Let me start off with a quick introduction. Then I'm going to ask Carolyn to introduce herself. And then we're going to dive right into it. Email broadcasting. My name is Jonathan Geyer. My first noteworthy note is I helped implement a health information exchange for the state of Minnesota. And in that, I was able to speak to 30 some odd thousand veterans. It's a big deal. It's the origin to the store or to this show. Second noteworthy note is I coach a boxing class, and we just crossed 1 million views on YouTube. People around the world are paying attention to my insights. Awesome. Carolyn, could you introduce yourself?
So I am Carolyn Carlson. I have a firm called DataClear in Arlington, Virginia. I'm originally from California. I've lived in the Washington, D.C. area for 40 years. And we are a prime contractor with U.S. Census Bureau on data mining. And I was a former approved vendor to members of Congress on Capitol Hill a few years ago. And my firm has an expertise in online communications and email marketing. So Jonathan, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today.
Oh my gosh. I would like to publicly just give a little context to what I'm doing. And coincidentally, you and I, we talked just for a moment preparing for this episode, but I'm doing an email campaign we are doing an email campaign as part of the show. I'm emailing out, just episode promotions to the Washington, D.C., Virginia area. And when we're having this offhand conversation, Carolyn mentioned some stuff that was awesome. And I asked her in this not recorded conversation to bring this back up when we are recording, because I'm positive our audience will benefit. So let me describe, hopefully we can recreate it. Let me describe what I'm doing. And then Carolyn, I'm going to ask that you provide the same if you can remember it, the same feedback. So I am currently emailing out 5,000 cold emails to government contractors in the Washington, D.C. area, just promoting our episodes. Why? Because the more eyeballs that see it, the bigger the show gets, and all signs are green. Like everything I'm doing right now is working, but I'm making it up as I go. It is not. I'm positive what I'm doing is not optimized because I'm a newbie. I haven't done this before. Carolyn, if you can remember, if you can recall the advice you gave me earlier, it'd be awesome to say the same kind of thing. So what I just described, it's all I remember describing to you. What was your feedback on that?
So, Jonathan, I'm going to talk about the big picture, and then I'm going to dive into what we talked about before we got onto this webinar today. So, with regard to email broadcasting, there are opt-in software capabilities like MailChimp and Constant Contact. Those are shared IP addresses, and they only want emails who have opted in or they know who the sender is. So when you send out an email broadcast, you're on a shared IP, and hundreds and many other accounts are using that IP address to get their messages out. So the software doesn't want complainers. So they don't want third-party marketing lists. So when you send out an email message on MailChimp or Constant Contact or an opt-in platform, they only want emails that know who the sender is, because if people complain and they don't know who the sender is, they're going to block your emails, and they will probably block somebody else who's also on that platform as well. So there are other email platforms where you can deploy to third-party lists. So I am a reseller of opt-in only platforms, and I'm more focused on being a reseller of third-party email platforms where you can send out to a wider audience and get them to opt in. So that's email broadcasting. So it's important to know when you're email broadcasting, are you dealing with an opt-in only platform that uses shared IPs, or are you dealing with a platform that can deploy to third-party lists? The second component that's very important is the quality of the email and the segment data. So if you have a 8-year-old email list and you haven't deployed to it recently, you're going to have sending issues because you're going to have failed old emails. And you want to deploy in an email broadcast platform where your emails are active and current as of today. And in this transient world, people change employers or they move from one ISP to another. So it's important to know that your email segments are clean and you're deploying to active only emails, and you're not deploying to failed emails. Because if part of your email segment has failed emails, that could present a blocking issue, and the internet service providers will prevent the rest of your emails from going through to Yahoo, to Gmail. AOL and Hotmail have a very low threshold for blocking. So if you have old emails, they are the first ones that will block. And those blocks by those ISPs can take 48 or 72 hours to remove, and it prevents your emails from going through. And you want to make sure that with good quality emails, the internet service provider is taking your message and parking it into inboxes and not considering it as junk mail and moving your message to either spam or junk. And that's part of industry best practices. So it's important to have good quality emails. You need to go to a vendor such as my firm where we can hygiene the emails, meaning we can ping the email to determine if it's active or not. You remove the failed emails, and then you're only deploying to a subset of good quality emails. So email hygiene and segmentation is very important. The third piece is we spoke about email segments before we got onto this webinar. So one of my recommendations for good, clean emails is to create small segments. And those segments can be by geography, for example. And so one of the ways to get good penetration into inboxes is by testing the subject line. And the two factors that will increase an open rate is local geography of the sender to the recipient email. So I recommend to my clients to create small segment emails by zip code or by city. If the city is large, you have to break them up into smaller segments and throttle them and send them over time. So anytime you can put local geography, county, zip code, or create the segments by zip code, and you put the town or the local geography in the subject line, that will boost an open rate. Because if you're deploying to third-party email lists, people don't know who the sender is. And you're building a connection by saying, hey, I recognize this. This is my local geography. Another way to get people off the dime to open up your email is if there is a timeliness and an urgency to the message, which is, we want you to open up this email because this event is taking place next Tuesday, or we're having an event this Saturday. The way you get people off the dime to open up an email is local geography, and if you tie it to a local upcoming event. So if you're going to promote something 3 or 4 weeks from now, it's basically saying we want you to hold the date, but you're also going to send out an email 10 days out, which is, hey, this event is happening on this day. There's a deadline for RSVPs, and we need for you to respond now, because you're going to get a different open rate when you send out a message, and you want people to do that call to action. So one of the things you can do in a really good, robust email platform is when you send a message out a month before an event and you say, hey, this is happening September 15th, and you're going to get a 10 or 15% open rate, and they're going to hold that date. And then maybe they're going to do the call to action. If they do the call to action, you can create a segment of opens today and suppress the opens today when you send out a reminder 2 weeks from now, so that when those people have opened up and done the call to action, you're not sending it to the same opens again because they've already responded. So there's ways where you can create an open list of responders and suppress and exclude them from a subsequent follow-up message, so that you're not bothering your activists. So those are ways in which you can use email broadcasting to garner a higher open rate without not upsetting people. So for example, I work with a nonprofit, and when they purchase, we minus the purchase and the donors so that we don't hit them up again, because there's nothing more frustrating than making your donors upset by saying, I already responded to this, and you got to stop asking me for money or follow up because I already responded. So you want to suppress and minus responders so that you're deploying to a subset of non-responders, and you keep on doing that until that event finally happens. So I've been rambling on. I don't know if you have any questions so far, but those are just some of the tips that I have.
I was active listening, but I try to prepare my next thought a little bit there. I'm a newbie. Like this is new to me. So I remember what I was thinking before I knew how things were going to work out. And one of the epiphanies, one of the things that kind of changed my perspective, and you just spoke to it a bit, like, why does opt-in matter? Or why does somebody not spamming, hitting the spam button on your email? Like, why does cleaning your email list matter? Or, I don't know. I feel like we should touch on some of the higher level use case, business case, value proposition for why sending out a lot of emails matter, while simultaneously why sending out emails to everybody in the country is a bad idea. Or, I remember when I started this journey, it was all about volume. Like, how many people can I email? And everything else was a lesser consideration than that. And I quickly learned that's a bad way to look at it. Like, and you just spoke to that with the area specific subject lines, or the date specific subject lines and whatnot. When I started this, I thought more the better. And then I learned there's a caveat. Like, it's you do more, but it's still got to appear like less. Making each I forgot what you said, area specific, or like segmenting that email list to area specific areas. So then I can speak directly to that area to make it feel personal, because that increases the open rate. And that actually matters for the ISP reasons you just mentioned. If they don't open up the rate, the odds of them, they could destroy my campaign by hitting a bunch of spam buttons. It is in my best interest to put a lot of attention towards avoiding that, mitigating that possibility. Like, it actually matters. It matters tenfold more than I thought it did when I started this.
So we're in a complicated, more confusing society, and it's important for entities, firms, nonprofits, businesses to be able to reach their audience in the method in which the audience wishes to receive its information. So, there are methods to communicate with senior citizens. And there are different methods to communicate with the younger audience, which has a tendency to gravitate towards social media. So email marketing is an omni-channel communication. It works well in conjunction with other ways in which to reach a specific audience. And I'm going to digress and talk about one of my clients, which is a political action committee. So they want to do email marketing because they want to reach voters and they want to get them to vote, either before a primary or before a general election. And they're saying, we support these candidates and we want you to vote on election day for this audience. And we're going to send out an email 3 weeks before the election, and you can vote early beginning today, or you can wait and vote on election day. But if you wait and vote on election day, you're going to be in a longer line. So if you want to avoid the longer lines, you can start voting now or on Saturdays on these days. So they have a tendency to use email marketing. My firm matched names and addresses of voters to an email, and they've loaded those emails for email broadcasting. They have to use a third-party email broadcast software platform because Constant Contact and MailChimp will only let you import lists who know who the sender is. So my client is a PAC, and they've got what's called a third-party list. It's voters' files matched to emails who don't know who the sender is. So we have to use a third-party platform, and therefore my client has to get a dedicated IP address. So when they send out their emails 3 weeks before the election, they're sending out an email perhaps today, and nobody else is sending on that dedicated IP address. There's no other sending traffic, and theoretically, their email should not get blocked because it's not on a shared IP with hundreds of other senders from Constant Contact or MailChimp. So when you're dealing with third-party email lists, you want to use an email broadcast platform, and you are forced to rent a dedicated IP. That is one key to get you better deliverability. Another key factor is to break up your emails into small segments. So if your client, my client, is in a major, large metropolitan area, I tell them to take their email segments and create small segments based on zip code, and you send them out in small increments over time. Theoretically, one of the things you may want to do is send out all your emails at once because you want to see how well it's resonating. You need to think differently than that when you're sending out large email segments, because the rule of thumb is the larger your email list is, the more you have to break it up and you have to throttle it into small chunks and send it over different times or different days. Secondly, you want to A/B test it. You want to test your subject line and you want to test your content and you want to see how it's resonating. A factor in that is, and I tell my clients, because we're using third-party emails and we're using a dedicated IP, I also tell them, I'll give you the template banner at the top, no wider than 600 pixels, and do not add more than one image. Because when your message is weighed down with multiple images or photos or extra information where you're trying to legitimize the sender, it could get blocked by an ISP. So when you're dealing with third-party lists, do not make a huge template that's wide, that's got tons of megabytes, and you're trying to get it through spam filters. That is going to get you automatically blocked, and your emails are not even going to leave the station. So,
oh my gosh. I apologize, but I have a great story to this. When I first started this, I copied my signature block out of my normal emails, and then I put it in. And we haven't mentioned cold email yet. I think it's important that we're speaking about cold email,
right?
But I included my normal signature block, which has all the links to my LinkedIn profile and Calendly and that. Well, I learned those links are bad. Like putting all those links, and I think it's similar to what you're talking about for images. Like
it's
it was
large images can get blocked and you don't even do it in a shared IP address, and you don't want to do it in a dedicated IP address, because dedicated IP addresses are more finicker. There's so many internet service providers, and they want to know who the sender is. They want to make sure that you're not sending out something that the reader considers spam. Jonathan, what you are sending out is not considered spam, but the recipient might perceive it as spam, because if they don't want it, they're going to say, I didn't want this, and they're going to hit spam. There's a very low threshold in AOL or Hotmail where your emails are going to get blocked, and all it takes is a couple people or a couple hundred people to say, I don't want this. I didn't ask for this. So you don't want to sell yourself short by putting a whole bunch of kitchen sink stuff in your message, such as images, signature blocks. I tell my clients, I'm only giving you a banner. Your banner has to be less than 600 pixels wide. And if you want a photo, just put a small photo in there. Oh, but I want to add a video. Add the video to the homepage website and add the link. Tell them the banner at the top should always be linked to the homepage for legitimacy, because you are going to have people that are going to say, is this really this entity? And when you click on the banner, it's going to take them to the homepage. That's all you really want for legitimacy. And to prove your legitimacy, especially if you're dealing with a third-party email segment, you have to have disclaimer information at the bottom, which is, what is the name of your entity? What is the mailing address? Sometimes you can get away with a PO box, city, state, zip, a reply email address that is not a major ISP. If you're using a third-party platform, you have to use a reply email that's tied to the domain of the sender. You can't use Gmail or Yahoo or AOL. And the rationale is because anybody can go to a major internet service provider and claim that they are that entity and fake a fake email address. So when you use our third-party email platforms, it has to be at data-clear.com, because you can't go out and fake that domain. So you're going to get a reply of that domain sender, and that's going to be your reply email, whatever it is. And then it's your name, your disclaimer address, your phone number, your reply email. And then with political party communications, there's a disclaimer at the bottom, which is paid for by, and then it's going to have the entity. So I have a client that wants to send out a message. Okay. Their goal and their call to action is, we want you to vote on election day. So legitimacy is, they're saying, here's our ballot, click to our homepage for legitimacy. If you have any questions, give us a call. And some people say, I don't want this. I'm of the same political party as you sending me, and I don't want to get my email communications that way. And I say to my client, you know what? Not everybody wants to get email about who to vote for. So I said, when we send out this email today that has your endorsement ballot, you need to update your LinkedIn, you need to update your Facebook, you need to update your Twitter, and you need to update your Instagram. And that way, when this email goes out, some people are going to want to check you out, and they're going to go to social media, especially if they're 30 years and below. And you have to update your social media. And if you don't update your social media, they're not going to vote for you, because they don't see your message as being legitimate, because they're checking you out. And so you have to think, especially for any audience that's trying to reach to you, because anybody who's younger than 30, they're going to do the due diligence, and you have to update your social media. Older people have a tendency to do that too. Older people sometimes like direct mail. Direct mail is very expensive. Some people still have landlines, believe it or not. And so they may want a robocall. And those people that are under 50 and under, they still have a phone. And so they may want a text message. So there's different ways to communicate with different audiences. But what's very key is, when you're sending out email marketing, it's important to legitimize yourself on other platforms besides email broadcasting. So when my firm does an email marketing message, I make sure our social media is updated, either with that same content or I'm posting something on Meta or X that's recent within the last week at the time that I send out an email message to showcase my firm is still in business. Okay.
It's all unified.
It's not 6 months old, and it's all unified. You need to demonstrate consistency. Oh, and when it comes to templates, that template that you're using in your email message, that needs to be the same one as the homepage. Don't use two different logos, one in your email message and have a different logo on your homepage. That sends mixed messages. So one of the things I implore is consistency. And so you want to test content, keywords, throttle your email sends over time. Because when you do an A/B test on 5,000 emails, you're going to find that maybe your message falls flat on its face. And then you need to tweak it. And then you do a CD test, and you're going to find that D does really well. And then you do an EF test, and you keep on testing. One of the comments I tell my clients is you constantly always want to test. Do not assume that when you send out a whole bunch of emails that you're going to get this great open rate. You want to see what people are resonating to so that you can tweak. And so one of the comments I make to my clients is you want to be flexible, you want to be nimble, you want to learn. And when you A/B test, you learn along the way and you learn how to pivot and shift. So anyway, that's just me rambling off again.
Maybe I think it's beneficial to elaborate that on a little bit, because A/B testing is a way bigger deal than I thought it was when I first started this. And, this actually ties into lessons I've learned through our boxing channel. I think we're at 700 videos now, something like that. And the videos that take off, the videos that resonate with and I'm a statistician. I spend a lot of time contemplating this stuff. The videos that take off, more often than not, total surprise to me. Like, It's not what I expected. It's not what I anticipated. The ones I think are awesome frequently fall flat and nobody cares. The longer I do this, the more I'm letting go of my personal perspective, and I'm reacting to how the audience perceives it, or I'm reacting to how the audience reacts. Because sometimes, more often than not, actually, the videos that take off caught me by surprise. And that's an observation of A/B testing, right? Like, I've had to learn that I don't know.
So I'm going to talk about two specific stories. One of them was 20 years ago, and we were asked by a firm to find people who would go to Congress to testify about ATF vehicles flipping over. And they wanted to hear from parents who had either lost their child or their child was severely injured. And the call to action was to find parents to go to Capitol Hill and testify before this subcommittee hearing that was talking about ATV vehicles and how dangerous they were. So we took the voter file in Oregon, and we sent out emails in small chunks trying to find 3 families, out of the Oregon voter file who would respond to this call to action because they were asked to come to Washington, D.C. on a specific day. We put Oregon, or we put the name of the county in the subject line. So when we send out different email segments, we put the specific county in the subject line. That's when we started getting responses. So you don't send out Oregon in the subject line to all of Oregon. You put the name of the county or the name of this large city in the subject line, and we need your response by this Friday. And that's how we got an open rate. So that's why I think it's very important to put local geography in the subject line. Take the time to create small segments rather than have one big segment for Oregon. You need to have 20 segments, create them for each specific county. Because if you're a legislator and you send out smaller email segments and you look at the open rate and you send them out 4 days apart and you spread your emails out 3 hours apart, you're going to see that one zip code is not performing as well as another zip code. So when you see a high performing zip code, you know you don't really need to focus on those people because they're engaged and they get it. But if you have a zip code that only has a 2% response rate, you need to go to that zip code and you need to show up there and find out why those people are not resonating. It could be low income population, or they're not reading the email that day. But when you send out emails by geography, you're going to know which areas are resonating and which areas are struggling. That's the importance of geography. The other story I want to talk about is A/B testing. So this is very vague, but this was in Colorado. And I remember doing A/B testing for a specific message. And it was to determine, I can't remember exactly what it was, but we did an A/B test, and the details are vague. And we tested two completely different factors. And your A/B test, and the platform I use has a C test. It's ABC, and 20% of the emails go to ABC, which means that whatever it is, 6.5 emails get A, 6.5 emails get B, and 6.5 emails get C. And that's the 20%. And after the 1 hour, then the 80% of the champion emails go to the winning test, whether it's A, B, or C. So I used to be in a platform that was A, B, and then the champion went out. Now I'm in a platform that does A, B, C for 1 hour, and then the champion goes out. So I can test 3 in 1 hour. That's the shortest amount of time. So you want to continue to do that. And what's important about A/B or ABC testing is you want your concepts to be completely different. And so when I teach my clients to do testing, they do testing that is extremely similar, where the A test is very similar to B test. And I tell them, don't do that. You need an A test that is completely different than B. And this was in Colorado to test a concept about what the local residents thought were important. And what they thought was important was the winning response is they wanted a red light at a major intersection. And it was completely different than something else. And I can't remember what the something else was, which is children's education or something like that, the local school education. The B test was, do you want a traffic light at this major intersection? And that's what won. So again, we were testing children's education or a traffic light. Make sure your testing is completely different thoughts, because that's going to get people off the dime. So make sure your A and B are not similar. And I have a client who he wants to put his toe in the water, but he's really not going off the deep end. His A and his B are so similar, it's not even worth testing. And I'm lecturing him on this. So one of the things I'm trying to implore to this larger, greater audience is make sure you're looking at concepts and factors that are completely different. And if you can't think out of the box, then go to a colleague and say, here's my A test. What do you think we should do as a B test? Because sometimes you need to go to another coworker or an alter ego to find something that's completely radical, that's worth testing. And so if you can't think out of the box, get somebody who can do that. And so I do 3 within 1 hour, an A, B, C, and then it rolls out to the champion after that. So that's my lecture on A/B testing.
Hey, Deep Thought, you just described an A/B test of an A/B test because you're going to somebody else to get outside of your own mind. And
Correct.
For the same reasons, like you don't know what you don't know, or we get encapsulated into our own biases, you know?
Correct. And I've had clients where I say, hey, we might want to consider doing an A/B test, which is a polite way of saying you actually need to do this. And they decline it. And they say, no, the customer, we're the consultant. The customer says we need to send it out right now. All the emails need to go out. And this is the only content we want. We don't want it tested. When your really bottom line is, don't you want people to resonate? don't you really want the highest open rate possible? And the way to do that is you're only taking an hour of your valuable time to determine what people want to hear. Because when you pay money to send out direct mail, or when you pay money to put a television ad, you don't get feedback. You don't get instantaneous response, you know? And so if you send out a text message, which is also kind of expensive, people can say, stop, don't send me any more information. But with email, you can look on the back end and see if you're connecting or if you're missing. And if you're missing, you need to make adjustments. And that's the beauty of it is I like to do research and I like to see on the back end what's happening, because when you're behind the curtain, you can pivot and shift. And I'm a big believer in pivoting and shifting, because that's how you do well in life. That's how you do well in government. And so I've done so many proposals where when you don't do well or you're in fifth place, I ask for a debrief and you pivot and you shift. And so that's how, Jonathan, you're going to do well in the long run, because as we get older, we're smarter, and you pivot and you shift and you learn from your mistakes.
Oh my gosh, you know, we are at time here, but you just touched on a super deep thought, and I'm going to jump on the opportunity to elaborate on it a little bit. Like, knowing that you don't know. In my experience, most people don't know that they don't know. And I have also learned through my experience, ironically, knowing now that I don't know, teaching people that they don't know sucks. Like, they, more often than not, they're not receptive to the information. So you described a business owner that premeditated a perfect strategy, and there was no exceptions to that strategy. It's going to work the way that we planned. And then if it, in my experience, if it doesn't work out the way they planned, there's a following up excuse, or, you know, following up reason that they come up with a reason why it didn't work out, other than the plan wasn't planned very well.
Right.
And I've had to let go of that ego. I've had to let go of that security. I'm not sure what word I'm looking for here, but I've had to let go of the idea that I know ahead of time. Hasn't been that way. You know, in boxing, it works that way too. Like, Mike Tyson's got a saying, you know, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. That actually has been my experience. I plan, and there's benefits to the act of planning, but I've noticed very few benefits to the plan itself. Like, the act of is more important. And yeah, this loops back into knowing that I don't know, knowing that whatever message I come up with, whatever boxing video I put out might just suck. Like, it's in my best interest now I'm picturing like gold mining, to find that vein of gold and then stick into that vein of gold. Yeah. I'm struggling for a metaphor here, but it's kind of like that. Like, I don't know where the gold's going to be, but when I find it, it's in my best interest to dedicate all my resources to whatever that is. Like, I had to accept I don't know where that vein of gold is in the mine. Like, you just got to dig until you find it. When you find it, go all in.
So I'm going to digress for 30 seconds and talk about a story. We saw something in systems for award management in the federal government arena. And I looked at that and I said, hey, my firm does online communications. We want to chase this opportunity. And so it had like a 2-week response window. So one of the things I did was, we had submitted a similar response to a different agency about 4 years ago. So I took that proposal, which was like 35 pages. I stripped out the former agency. I did a search and replace, and I changed it to the current agency that is looking for a sources sought due in the next 2 weeks. So I changed agencies. The request is similar. They want the similar thing. So with the previous proposal, they had a wish list, and they had stakeholders in a meeting 4 years ago or 6 years ago, and they said, we want all these things. So all I did was change the agency, and I changed the team because I have a different team now. And so I have the new agency and I have the new team, and I said, I'm doing the introduction, I'm doing the conclusion. You need to take the meat in the middle for this agency that wants this due. And I said, they're going to have the same laundry list, because what we have to showcase is we have to demonstrate proof of concept. We have to introduce who we are. We have to show that we're subject matter expertise. We have to show
Firm
that we're
understanding.
competent. We have to show that we're competent. We have to show that we have certifications. We have to show that we can solve this from soup to nuts. And that is our proposal. We have to get credibility, and don't even talk about pricing. We're not there yet. This is a source of thought. So they went in and they looked at the content, and I said, when you respond back to this, tell the agency why we're doing what we're doing in our proposal, why we're proposing this, and why this is the best solution. And then we're going to reinforce that in our conclusion. And I said, and if we get a call back, you're going to have 10 questions about pricing, but you're not there yet. Our goal is to showcase credibility. And that's what we submitted 2 weeks ago. So one of the things I'm saying to businesses out there is time management is very important. So you want to be strategic. You want to chase after your expertise and see if you've done something similar somewhere else, strip out the details and customize it and tweak it for the one that's currently due. And so we have high hopes for this, and we're hoping to see, and it looks like the agency wants to no longer work with the incumbent. So we tried to showcase how we are better than and best value than what they're currently paying, because I've done that research. So anyway, that's me just digressing, and that's what I've kind of been up to.
Which, awesome. Oh my God. You know, the more I get into government contracting, the more I like it. Like just the strategy, it really is a chess game.
It is
but it's not, I don't know when this is kind of weird to say. It's just what I'm thinking of right now. But when I got into it, there's a legal kind of framework not kind of, but there's factually a legal framework to government contracting, right? Like, and that, I don't know. I guess I started with like a negative association, not negative by, I thought it was going to be real complicated. I thought it was going to be a real big deal. I thought it was more than what it was. Once I got into it, the more I'm getting into it now, the more, I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce this right, formaric, the more of a formula I'm seeing. Like there's fundamental steps. If you follow that step, you get to where you're going. And I believe you just, I forgot where I was going with that. I believe go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is, if you want to get into federal government contracting, you have to have a thick skin, and you're going to get a lot of people who are going to say no to you. And it's important to partner with as many people as you can. And so my word of advice is, I actually prefer to partner with small business, because small business is nimble and quick. And, you know, I'm a child of an immigrant parent who was small business. I grew up in small business. So I like to partner with other small business. However, I find myself partnering with a lot more medium-sized businesses that want to go to the next level, and they are hungry to get to the next level. And I actually have a team, whether they want to use our team or not for a specific opportunity, and we have credentials. I have a woman-owned business credential. I have an 8A credential. We've got ISO credentials, which you have as well. And so those are certain check boxes that medium-sized businesses want. And we're chasing after opportunities that hopefully are sole source. I actually had a conversation with a large tier one firm about 2 months ago. And somebody said, oh, go talk to so-and-so defense contractor, because they're the best partner for you, because that's the only one that can solve this opportunity, because we were looking at something diversified. Well, I went to the small business person of that large defense contractor, and he emailed me back the next day, and he said, sorry, I can't take this to senior management. We only want to chase stuff that's over $200 million or more. And I went, okay, thank you very much. So I'm no longer going to update our profile in that small business firm. So you need to go out and talk to a lot of people, because The more you do that, the more you're going to find partners. And small businesses are hungrier in this current administration. There's a continuing resolution that's going to come up. What's going to happen in the next fiscal year? Who knows? But you have to find those fewer opportunities farther in between and find those partners. And you have to pick yourself up whenever you hear a no. You put the Band-Aid on your knee, and scrape off the blood and go find another partner. So I have a tendency to gravitate towards small businesses and medium-sized businesses. And I don't think we have a differentiator for the tier 1 firms. So, I have our certain niche, and when you're business, you got to maximize your time management. So you got to do what you got to do. And the more strategic you are and the more focused you are about specific opportunities, you turn over specific rocks, and then you chase after the lowest hanging fruit. And so our colleague, our other mentor colleague, says you got to take that funnel and reduce that funnel to a minimum. And I think that's what you and Jonathan and I are doing.
Oh my gosh, I had a couple of thoughts there. I was active listening. Let's see if I can recall what they were. First off, you have you got on a unique contract vehicle. That, you were sending out emails saying, does any of this match our capability statement or whatnot? Super interesting. That might be something worth highlighting here publicly for the benefit of your company. And then I had a second thought. Let's see if I can recall it. I think before we end this, we should do a high level value, like why email broadcasting matters. And you just touched on it. I'm thinking it'd be beneficial to be more specific on it. Like why Randy's massive media outreach or massive, I forgot how he says it, but like reaching out to find those partners to,
I'm a little biased in that I have been involved in online communications and email marketing for about 25 years.
Oh my
and
gosh.
The reason why I like it is because it's cheaper than direct mail. It's cheaper than television ads. I actually have a partner that does SMS text messaging to legitimately, because you want to make sure you're working with a legitimate firm. And my partner actually works with voter file data. So, they've got the quality capability. And there's social media. There's either paid social media or there's the do it your own social media. So there's different ways to reach out there. And I like email marketing because it is relatively inexpensive if it's done correctly. And I deal with people who they get blocked and then they come to my firm and they say, hey, we got blocked in MailChimp and I need to send this out by next week. And, if you're there and you're a problem solver and you help people, that's how you can garner business. And so email marketing, if done correctly and effectively, is an inexpensive way to get a message out. And if you're willing to pivot and shift. And I'll digress and tell you, I actually I don't know how much time we have, but I actually had a client who came to me as a referral. And they said, hey, we want to send out an email message and we only have a month. And I come to find out through another source after the fact that they were blocked on another platform, which is why they came to my firm. They were a referral of one of my clients who said, Carolyn, will you take this client? This is so-and-so. I don't know them very well. Will you help them get their email message out? And then he said to me, because he's a friend, he says, make sure you get payment up front. And I went, okay, because that's really good because no one wants to get stiffed. So they said that they wanted to send out email messages. Okay, fine. I said, are your emails clean? She said, yes. I come to find out that that was not true. She imported their emails into our platform, sent them all out at one time, which is against my rule, which is you need to create small fractions, send them out over time, get better deliverability. She sent out all of her emails all at once, a huge list. She got blocked. Her emails were old. She had failed emails in it. Then she calls me up and bitched and complained. She's in the passenger seat car. Her husband is the candidate. He's the driver. And she's saying, why are my emails blocked? Okay. And then I said to her, I explained to you how to do email broadcasting. You told me your email list is clean. She said, yes, it is. And I said, that's a false statement. I'm looking at your open rate, and your open rate is 45%. If you had clean emails, you wouldn't have this problem. So you have to tell me the truth. If your emails were not clean, I would have sold you a hygiene. We would have removed the failed emails, and you could email every day till the cows come home, all the way up until your deadline, which is a month from now. So my bottom line is, don't lie to the consultant who's trying to help you, because when you lie on email broadcasting, I'm going to find out. And when I find out, then she said to me, what do I do now? And I said, you can only email broadcast to your opt-ins. She says, what is that? The ones who opened. Oh, how many opened? A couple thousand. She says, I can only email broadcast the opens for the next month. And I said, yes, because you're now behind the 8 ball and you're blacklisted and you're using my firm's dedicated IP address. So don't lie to your consultant. That's one of my bottom lines is I've seen everything, and people think that they're doing you a service by not telling you the truth. And we're going to find out. So anyway, that's one of my.
Well, and then cleansing this last week or 2 weeks ago, was maybe a month ago. A month ago was the first time I've ever cleansed an email list. It wasn't a big deal, and it made a big difference.
It makes a big difference. And I do cleaning too. You could have come to me and I would have matched the price, or I would have beaten the price, Jonathan.
I like it. Awesome. Oh my gosh, I wasn't sure if I was going to say anything on camera, but so I did the email. I knew you were in email marketing from the Government Contracting Academy, right? But I was just messing around, pushing buttons and seeing what happens. So my email marketing so far is me smushing buttons to see what happens. And now I'm fairly educated in how it works. I think I'm ramping up to 30,000 emails per month in the Virginia, DC area. And you and I haven't talked about this, so I'm interested to see how it's going to work out here live on camera. I think it'd be beneficial for if DataClear wants to do our email marketing, because we can market DataClear on top. I don't know. I'm just thinking, in fact, when you started describing earlier, it's like, holy crap, I should ask Carolyn about incorporating her service into what I'm doing, because it would be mutual beneficial. I'm deliberately emailing out to government contractors.
So I will be as flexible as you want. And what I'm saying is that if your email list is clean, and if you want us to help you out in a small increment, I'm very flexible. I can do with this as small scale as you want and help further it. What I would recommend is that you create segments of Maryland and send them only to Maryland. And create your Maryland segments in small chunks and see how, Baltimore does versus Anne Arundel County. And then do your Virginia segments differently. You can do Southern Virginia, you can do Norfolk, and then you can do Northern Virginia versus Loudoun County, and kind of see how that goes. And if you want to use my platform, I'll show you how to use it. It's basic features like everything else, but it's got an ABC test capability, and then you see your results in about an hour. Let me tell you another quick 30-second story. I actually had a Baltimore client reach out to me, and they wanted to take names and addresses and match it to emails. And I did that. And I gave the client back to them, and they wanted to use their own email broadcast platform. And I said, okay, so I called them about 2 weeks later, because we had to do the email match, and then we have to launch an opt-out, which is, if you do not want to hear from Carolyn Carlson, click here. And so I give them a file of delivered emails, and then I give them the unsubscribes. And I say, with the unsubscribes, you have to direct mail them, but you can't email broadcast to them. So I called up this client about 10 days later, and I said, hey, you're Baltimore, right? And he said, yes. He was actually a legislator. And I said, you have a very low email match rate. I said, normally industry best practices are you're like between here and here. Your match rate for your emails is extremely low. And I don't want to tell you how low it is because it was bad. And he said, and I said, are we doing everything okay? And he says, actually, your information is accurate. He says, I represent inner city Baltimore. These are poor people and they don't have emails. And I said, here's what I'm willing to do. I said, your email charges don't even hit my minimum. So I said, if you want, I'll give you the emails. But one, and I said, does your constituency have landline? And do they have cell phone? And he said, yes. And I said, I'll just give you the emails, but why don't you do a landline match and do a round of robocalls to them? And I'll do an email match and I'll give you the vendor who can do the text messaging. And I said, hey, you get 3 chances to reach these people. You can email the ones with the low match rate. You can robocall a message with the ones who have the landline. And you can also text message those who have the cell phone and you know that you're reaching people under 45 years old. And that's how I was able to resolve the Baltimore client. So there are certain inner cities, rural locations that have low email match rates. So, you have to keep that in mind because industry best practices are, if you're talking about individual and household, which is you take my address and you can get not only my address, but you can get anybody else who lives at that dwelling who's over 18 years old that also has an email address. That means spouse and dependent kids who are over 18 years old, because once you hit 18, that's when your email is with the major credit bureau reports. So that's what can be matched. So anyway, that's just me digressing. And so when you send out to Maryland, test Maryland, and I guarantee you what you test in Maryland can be different than Southern Virginia versus Northern Virginia. Southern and Northern Virginia are very different. It's like South and North New Jersey. It's very different. So one of the things you get smarter is you take the time and you do small increments of testing and you learn from that. And then you slowly branch out.
Oh my God, that was great advice. We are at 56 minutes. We should probably end this. I ask every guest, what would you like the final takeaway from what would you like our audience to be thinking about 5 hours from now, 5 hours after they watch us, sitting in a chair staring at the walls? What do you consider the optimum idea that should be percolated in their mind?
That's a really good question. And you really want that like in 2 minutes. We are in challenging times and it's important to be positive and surround yourself with friends. And in these volatile financial situations, to continue to be upbeat, do the best that you can, conserve your funds and resources, and find partners and friends that you want to surround yourself with. I will digress and tell you, I once went to a convention in Virginia and I went up to a booth and I introduced myself to a gentleman and what I did. And he said to me, you want to go and find a firm or someone who you dream about every day that wants to do business with you. And that's what you kind of have to do is everybody has a skill set and you need to find someone or some firm that thinks about you regularly, that wants to do business with you, that wants to have a business marriage with you. And so my takeaway is you have a personal family, go find a business family that you dream about, that you want to do business with. Be strategic, do your research, and if it's right, you go for it. That's actually how I won my contract, is I did the research and I said, I know we can do that. And so we focused, and we came in at best value. So, be the ever optimist and hopefully good things will come.
Oh my gosh, that was awesome. We're not going to top it. Great conversation. What's the name of your company?
Oh, data-clear.com. And I have a joint venture that's GSA 88 stars 3 meridiandatapro.com. So you can go to the website and fill out the contact information, and I'm happy to talk to people. Thank you,
Awesome.
Jonathan. It's a pleasure to reconnect. It's been too long.
Oh my gosh. Awesome. Thank you all for watching. Join us for our next one. What a great conversation. Holy cow. Thank you, Carolyn. Have a great day.
Jonathan. Have a good weekend. Thank you. Bye.